Hi everybody, this is Major League Baseball Blockbuster Trade History with your host. My name is Amir Malikpour.
And I'm Scott Talber.
And we're basically huge baseball fans, and essentially what this podcast entails is we just love trades in baseball. And so we want to talk about all our favorite, least favorite, who gives a crap type of trades that have happened in baseball. Usually we'll concentrate on some of the ones where were disastrous for one team and great for another, or great for both teams. And so let's just get started off. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing good, but I feel left out. I feel upset because you forgot a fourth category, which is the trades that haven't worked for either team, or screwed them for the next 5 years or whatever.
But really, if you really think about the trades that haven't worked for either team, that's actually, I think it goes in the books as like neutral.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's
go.
They didn't give up anything and they didn't get anything.
Yep.
Or, unless we haven't had where two serial killers were traded for each other, where they went off on a spree and cost the team a lot of money or something. So.
Although Bill Lee was an arsonist, I think he got
really?
busted for that. But yeah.
What?
Or the trades that never happened. Supposedly Matt Cain for Alex Rios to the Blue Jays, and they changed it to Tim Lincecum for Alex Rios.
Wow,
but
thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Thank God we're not talking about that today. Although there is another disaster. We're both Giants fans, although we're baseball fans first, so love baseball a lot. We live in San Francisco, so it's kind of mandatory for us to root for the Giants. But the one really disastrous trade for the San Francisco Giants was when the Giants traded Joe Nathan, Boof Bonser, or Bosner.
Boof Bonser and Francisco Liriano for AJ Pierzynski.
Yeah, and at the time, how did you feel about this trade?
I really liked it because Pierzynski just came off an all-star season. He hit over 300. Giants needed a catcher. The Twins, small market team, and Pierzynski was due for a raise. I think he was going to become arbitration eligible, and the Twins did not want to dole out the cash. So, for all those reasons, and then Joe Nathan, when he came up, he was rushed, and as a result, he didn't do well. He got pressure from the fans, from the radio talk show hosts, and maybe indirectly from upper management, and all that led to him pressuring himself. And one of my all-time favorite Giants is Willie McGee, even though he's really a lifer in the St. Louis organization. But he had a quote that said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "I do my best hitting when I'm not thinking." And I think Joe Nathan got caught up in all that, which led him to think every time he went out, and he ended up sucking. And Boof Bonser had no opinion on him. I'd heard of him. He was really a throw-in. But really, Francisco Liriano, even the Twins GM came out a year later and said, "Hey, we had no idea he'd be this good." So I was all for it at the time.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned McGee's hitting is actually Joe Nathan hit 2 home runs in the year 2000. His hitting was better than his pitching in the year 2000. Although the year before they traded him, actually Nathan was the main guy in that trade. It's because the year before he had 12 wins and he had a 2.96 ERA out of the bullpen, which is really good. He started off as obviously a shortstop.
Right.
We haven't talked about it on this podcast. We talked about it outside of this podcast. And then he came in as a starter, and he didn't succeed, and became a reliever, and then... so I... at the time, I was actually really happy about it, too, because, exactly you said, Pierzynski was a 300 hitter, and you don't really find that in catchers a lot, especially when you're a Giants fan, when you have Kurt Manwaring batting 200, playing great defense, being hard-nosed, but not hitting. And at the time, I didn't really think about his defensive deficiencies or his personality, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, so it was a decent trade at the, or we felt like it was a decent trade at the time, and Nathan, as well as he done, is like he was a reliever that I felt like he got lucky getting 12 wins, and but yeah, so what happened?
Well, I think that Giants needed a catcher. Minnesota, small market team. Pierzynski was up for arbitration, or arbitration eligible. He was probably going to win his case. And they also had Joe Mauer waiting in the wings. They had just drafted him, number 1 overall. And, you know, the Twins even said, we are not going to pass up on another native Minnesotan.
Mm-hmm.
They passed up on Dave Winfield, Jack Morris,
Wow.
and Paul Molitor, and they weren't going to screw this one up. Although all 3 of those guys, toward the end of their career, played for the Twins,
Don't
right?
forget Terry Steinbach.
Oh, yeah.
He went back. He was in Minnesota.
Forget the Hayes. I'm kidding. Yeah, he ended up with Minnesota, too. Yeah. So, actually, going off a little side note here, Dave Winfield never played a minor league game ever, and I believe he was drafted in 4 sports. Hockey was not one of them, I don't think.
Well, we know. No.
Yeah, that's. I want to say something related to one of the sports that's in the Olympics, but I don't remember. But baseball, football, basketball, and an Olympic sport.
Wow, he played football too? That's really crazy. Because I know basketball. He's a tall guy. And I think I've seen pictures of him and like those 70s shorts where you can almost see the junk.
The short shorts.
Short shorts?
Yeah. The last guy, John Stockton, kept those alive for a little too long. But
we digress.
Yeah.
But like that's a different podcast. We'll probably like that's something that like we would need to take hours and hours talk about the short shorts and
But
how did basketball players keep their junk? I mean, anyways, I don't know. Sorry.
I don't know. I mean,
but so getting back to the trade.
I thought basketball was played with 1 ball. I guess it's 3. Maybe I was wrong, but yeah.
So I guess getting back to like the trade. Pierzynski coming to the Giants, he had a decent year, right? He had for a catcher, you know, he had like, just looking at his numbers, you know, he batted .272, 11 homers, 77 RBIs. That's not bad. Although his on-base percentage dropped from .360 to .320, or .319, which
right.
So that seems like, hey, you know, it's not a bad trade, you know, and then. You know, what do we give up? Joe Nathan, what's he going to do? Yeah. And what happened to Joe Nathan?
Yeah, he blew up, and in a good way. And I mean, the thing with Pierzynski is those are decent numbers for a catcher, but being a lifelong Giants fan, and I mean, I would say before Pierzynski, their best hitting catcher was either Terry Kennedy or Bob Brenly. I mean, Kurt Manwaring had that great season. He won a Gold Glove. He hit about .270, I think, in 1993. But that was an anomaly for him. The offensive numbers were. And, you know, it's like when you go through Johnny Rabb and, like, you know, who are some other Giants catchers who sucked?
Bill Bafe.
Bill Bafe, yeah. Thank you. I hear Bill Bafe, and I feel like I need to bathe to get that dirty memory out of my head, you know? Yeah. But they just did not have anything in the wings, and really, I guess until now with Buster Posey, Terry Kennedy and or Bob Brenly was it offensively.
Joe Carter played for the Giants 1 year. He had 9 home runs.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was, like you said, Terry Kennedy was the last guy I could remember being like, I mean, he wasn't that good with Giants, but I think he got like 24 doubles, and I was like, whoa, this guy's good.
That was a big deal. That was a big deal.
Yeah, so I mean that trade. I felt like was good, and then Joe Nathan goes on and has a decent career as a probably the best closer of his generation. The next year, I mean, just looking at his numbers, he had a 1.62 ERA, 44 saves.
Yep. Yep.
Jeez.
And there was a poll done by, I believe ESPN. We're not. I don't know. I know it's the West Coast, but ESPN did a poll or this little fun thing a few years back about the greatest seasons among players in their respective positions, and in both leagues. And just this isn't like a career thing, just individual seasons. And for pitchers, they broke it up into starters and relievers, just closers, not setup guys. And one of Joe Nathan's seasons was considered the best single season closer, season for a closer of all time. Just that one season, and the ERA was great. The amount of saves, the save percentage, the WHIP, all that, whatever formula they used, or the consensus among their writers was, that was the best closer any closer had in the American League ever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, he basically finished his Minnesota career with 260 saves. And Pierzynski hit 11 home runs for the Giants. He batted 270.
Yeah.
And the thing that we were not mentioning is he actually punched their athletic trainer in the balls.
Yeah. Speaking of balls, Stan Conti, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it Stan Conti?
I think it was Stan Conti. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But, maybe he doesn't want us to give him out his name.
Yeah.
Stan C.
Yeah. Actually, we tried to get Conti on the phone, and he called us. And he was, it was me that got kicked in the balls.
Well, we can make fun of him because he works for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But no, he was a good trainer. But I think it was kind of out of line, right? Because I think Stan Conti wanted to, not what we said, but Stan Conti went over to help him out, and Pierzynski, being in a bad mood, just punched him in the balls. And, a lot of the Giants pitchers complained about Pierzynski as well, because in private they would talk to various beat writers and other reporters in the locker room and say, hey, Pierzynski would rather play cards before a game than talk about the game plan. And that was a huge argument against him among the Giants pitchers, especially the starting staff. And the guy has a huge personality. He has a huge ego, and I think it makes for a good broadcaster when he fills in on ESPN and elsewhere during the postseason. Except for the year with the White Sox where they won it all, we didn't have time to do that, which we'll get to later. But it was not good for a pitching staff as a team leader, as a captain of the pitching staff, and I think that kind of screwed up the locker room too, with even let alone with the thing with the trainer. Yeah, it wasn't good. I wasn't happy when they won because the only thing, the laurels that you could rest on is like, well, this guy's not a winner. He's gonna go to another team and maybe he'll get his numbers, but they're not gonna win jack.
Plus, the White Sox hadn't won in a long time either.
Yeah. It's like, thank God he went to a team that's not gonna win a World Series. Thank you, God. Thank you, Black Jesus.
Thank you, Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
So.
But what happened? What happened in 2 years later with that? So he went to the White Sox, had a decent year.
Yeah.
With them the next year. They didn't do anything, thank God. And then the year after that, he became an All-Star.
Yep.
And White Sox won the World Series, and they broke their
Yep.
however many years streak of not winning.
Yeah.
The Giants still had their streak of not winning.
Yep. And Francisco Liriano, although I think the Liriano end is a little overblown, because I think he really had one half of a great season, and he's been injured a lot, but other than him and Boof Bonser is kind of irrelevant in this whole thing, but it's the Joe Nathan part. Like he I mean, he will not be a Hall of Famer, but he is one of the greatest closers of our generation, probably.
Yeah, I mean, the Liriano season, he had a really great year last year for Pittsburgh, but that's assuming would he stay with Giants or whatever.
Right.
But he had one, like you said, it was one great half a season where he won 12 games and 2.16 ERA and like pitched 100. So I mean, at some point this looked like, oh my God, what a disastrous trade.
Yep.
And then Liriano unfortunately got hurt. I mean, you never really root for that, but but yeah, he didn't have and then Bonser, who actually came back and tried out for the Giants again and didn't really play very well.
Yep.
But if you really think about it, Bonser actually had a better career for Minnesota than Liriano did in terms of efficiency. But Liriano won about 50 games for them, so it wasn't like but yeah, he didn't have a great year. And then Pierzynski, getting back to Pierzynski. So
he had the famous quote, right? Like, what was it? Best of both worlds, or with a smile on his face. I can still see the broadcast. Best scenario for everyone involved, meaning he got the ring. Funny because Twins are in the same division as the White Sox. They got two good players, I guess. Definitely one great player, and the Giants got left with nothing. And including not being, they didn't keep Pierzynski much after, and win anything.
So, what happened to the Giants? They must have traded Nathan, and in the coming years, next year they just had another great reliever, and they forgot about it, right?
Yeah, they looked across down south and saw the future of Eric Gagne, or the next Mariano Rivera.
Yeah.
So,
and they got Matt Herges,
who was a Dodger, and he has a good story too. People used to call him Matt Herpes because all you had to do is switch up the G with a P, and it would spell herpes. And he was later traded to the Expos for another future Giant and future Giant juicer, Guillermo Mota. But that's for another podcast, or maybe not.
Did he have herpes too? No.
I think the steroids healed that, but I'm not sure. But actually, Matt Herges came to the Giants in a rare inter-division trade. The Padres gave him up for really nothing.
He actually was a good player with the Padres. He was a middle reliever, but I mean, he wasn't a closer per se, but I mean, it was actually at the time when the Giants got him, we're like, wow, that's actually a good deal because he's going to play really well for the Giants.
Yep.
And he did for a while. He actually got some pretty good saves early on, and then kind of self-destructed.
The saves he got, though, were because he wore condoms, not because he was a clutch closer, but...
Yeah. Well, save the person he was with.
Thank you.
It's so basically his numbers, his ERA was like 5.23. He gave up tons of home runs. He gave up 8 home runs, which is a lot for a closer.
Right.
He did have 23 saves, but just his numbers were pretty bad. And the Giants had to settle on another wonderful guy, Dustin Hermanson.
Yep. He was, he was drafted really high, I think, once upon a time, if I'm not mistaken. And there was not by the Giants, by the way, by another team. And
third pick
overall, right?
Around 94 draft by the Padres.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people were looking at him big time, and he just failed miserably.
Yeah, and actually he came up as a starter, and he had some decent years. He played for Montreal. He got 14 wins for him in '98. He had another 14 wins in 2001, and then in 2004 for the Giants, he gets a 4.53 ERA, goes 6-9, and gets 17 saves that same year.
Yeah.
So I mean, combined with Matt Herges and Dustin Hermanson, they actually got about 40 saves, but they blew a bunch of them too, and they gave up a lot of runs. So that wasn't good.
Also, just like one thing about relief pitchers in general, because they pitch so many fewer innings, 1 or 2 or 3 bad outings will like inflate the ERA. But yeah, with that said, Joe Nathan had the under 2 ERAs and the 2.5 ERAs, and the
minimum amount of blown saves. But actually, Dustin Hermanson's ERA was 4.53, and he pitched quite a bit of innings. He pitched 131. He got some spot starts, and Herges had 65 innings. So their ERAs are pretty bad no matter what. 5 and 4.5. But so all right. So 2005. It's gonna be good. We're gonna get a really good closer, and Nathan's doing his thing, and get it in the Cy Young voting, getting his under 2 ERA, 30 plus 40 saves. And the Giants are like, well, we're gonna do somebody good. We're gonna get somebody good too. Let's get Armando Benitez.
If I remember correctly, Amir, that was 3 years for $7 million per. So 3 years, $21 million for Armando Benitez, maybe one of the worst Giants of all time.
Well, one thing about Armando Benitez could have been like one of the biggest heroes for the Giants while he was playing for the Mets.
Yeah.
Because he gave up that home run to JT Snow to tie the game. Unfortunately, the Giants lost that series. But
Yeah, I have a memory of, is it Timo Perez memory in my head somewhere from that game.
I think that whole year I blocked it out. I don't, it was either, I didn't do any drugs, so it must have been that game that erased my memory of that whole year.
Yeah.
But getting back to this year.
I forgot about it because I contracted herpes from Matt Herges.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. You were in San Diego?
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Red lamp, green lamp, whatever lamp district. Yeah, yeah.
You mean like the what is it, PNC Park?
Yeah, Petco,
right.
Jack Murphy Stadium, Qualcomm, whatever it was back then. Yeah.
Well, anything but having to endure bad closers, which the Giants did again in 2005. It was so bad that Armando Benitez, like a big free agent signing, ended up losing his job. I don't know if he was injured or he lost his job. And he had a huge whip too, 1.367, which is almost 1.4, which is horrendous for a closer.
Yep.
And so Tyler Walker steps in.
Woo!
Yay!
The Bay Area's own.
Yeah, and he did pretty. His ERA again was high, 4.23. Benitez were 4.5, which are horrendous numbers for closers. But Walker got 23 saves, and the Giants did horrible again. But there's hope. 2006, right?
Yep.
And 2006, they had Armando Benitez still. His ERA got a little bit better, but the Giants still didn't do very well. Closers were good. They had their catcher was Eliar Alfonso.
Yep.
Again, so that wasn't a good year for closers. But surely 2007 can be good, right?
Of course. I'm seeing visions of a Randy Messenger trade.
But not before the Randy Messenger savior. It's Brad Hennessy, everybody.
Woo!
And again, the Giants didn't do very well.
He will make you want to pass out after drinking some Hennessy, by the way, after that. So, Randy Messenger, by the way, maybe the worst chin strap facial haircut in Giants history.
Well, didn't Brad Hennessy have one too? Oh no, you're right. It was Randy Messenger. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, terrible.
Speaking of terrible beards or facial hair, next year Brian Wilson actually stepped up and played well.
Yep. Again, he had that high ERA, but he made his first All-Star team, right?
Yeah, he had a 4.62 ERA. he was a jerk, but he played well.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, so it's so Giants really suffered until maybe 2008, and they didn't. The catchers, they actually had some pretty good catchers along the way.
Yeah. They let's see. We're talking. We mentioned Eliezer Alfonso. He was pretty great. Great name.
He took steroids, right?
I don't. He and Bobby Estelea did, and thanks to Benito Santiago, maybe. Yeah. But they did make a really good free agent signing with Mike Matheny.
Yeah.
And Mike Matheny had already won 2 or 3 Gold Gloves with the Cardinals. And I think he won 2 with the Giants, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Then he had that horrible concussion, which ended his career, and the Giants were out of luck again.
Yeah.
So, yep.
And then they had Benji Molina.
Yep.
And he actually batted 4th for them. I mean,
yeah.
He didn't really deserve to bat 4th, but they didn't have anybody else who could hit.
Yeah.
But he ended up getting 90 RBIs, almost 100, and
yeah.
He
had like a 90-0 RBI to triple rate, which is great for catchers. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, he handled the pitchers well, and he kind of like taught a lot of the youngsters who came up with the Giants, and kind of became superstars later on,
including maybe Buster Posey before they traded Molina to the Rangers.
Well, the interesting thing about Molina, though, if I remember correctly, he didn't really like Buster Posey. Like there was a time where he like went on a hissy fit. Where like, hey, why are you bringing Buster Posey? Like and they traded him, and Buster Posey, and after that, when he came up his rookie year and won the Rookie of the Year, it's all history. The best catcher in San Francisco Giants history.
And while they're on the team together, Posey would play first base, and Benjamin Molina caught. And then once they made the trade, where they sent Benjamin Molina to the Rangers for Chris Ray, a reliever, then Posey did his thing behind the plate and went off in a series in Milwaukee and that whole road trip, and then it ended in a parade down Market Street in San Francisco.
Yeah, so what we're trying to basically say is that this Pierzynski, or getting Pierzynski with Nathan worked out for the best, because
there would be no Buster Posey trade.
Yeah, 7 years later we won the World Series because of that trade, and that's the conclusion. That's the moral. No, it's not. It's still a horrible. It's still a horrible story. I was gonna say actually. So it's still a horrible trade for the Giants. It's still kind of a lot of Giants fans feel like Nathan could have done a lot, but we got our World Series in 2010 and 2012. Buster Posey played well. Thank God Pierzynski left, and so we had some decent catchers along the way, and that was pretty good. Well, this has been a really great talking to you. Thank you so much for listening to us. It's been really fun, Scott. So next week we're gonna talk about another awesome trade, and I hope you guys can tune in.
And by the way, these won't all be Giants. We are baseball fans, as Amir said up front. We are baseball fans first, and we just happen to choose this because we are lifelong Giants fans. But it won't be all Giants. It'll be Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
All right.
So tune in. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, guys.